China is one of the sort of key anchors in the oil market. Now, by all measures that we can track, and I just saw you had a fascinating discussion about data, particularly in China with your previous guest. By all measures that we can check, China demand has been excellent this year. Yeah. Refineries are running. They're importing crude. We don't see that many stock builds of refined product. So if you triangulate it all, I know that in many areas there has been disappointment about China reopening in the oil market. That is not the case this year. Chinese oil demand has been good.
Which is exactly why I asked you it, because I've been looking at your copy, and I always do, so thank you very much indeed for that, and what the analysts have been telling us elsewhere, some of the other pesky banks as well. I look at them as well, Martin. But the truth of the matter is, it seems like an outlier, the real concern about China, and yet this is really solid demand. What do you think is going on?
If we look at the mobility statistics, domestic flights are up, measures of sort of individual transports, car driving around, congestion measures, they're all relatively encouraging. So irrespective of what's happening in the rest of the economy, people seem to be flying and driving, and that part of the economy is simply doing what we expected at the start of the year.
Fair enough.
Can it continue, though? I mean, these property market concerns that there are properties that people have handed large amounts of money over for, the properties are not even built at this point, and if they're not going to get their hands on this property down the track and potentially sitting on losses, doesn't that compress the wealth effect and therefore spending patterns down the line? Yeah,
most of what I just said is simply looking back on the data that we have, and the data is what the data is. But looking forward, this is an excellent question, of course, because you can say, well, looking at Chinese oil demand, it has already recovered. The more it has recovered, the less it has to grow from here on. So this year, we're looking at a year globally of quite strong oil demand growth in historical context. Oil demand will grow something in the order of 2 million barrels a day. The historic trend rate of growth is closer to 1, 1.2, 1.3, that sort of thing. Now, this year is probably the last year of the sort of post-COVID recovery in demand. So for 2024, we're all collectively starting to think, well, should we have oil demand closer to historic trend, say 1.2 million barrels a day? But if you decompose the historic trend rate of growth, easily 400,000 or 500,000 barrels a day would have come from China for 20, 30 years in the past. So if China's demand growth doesn't continue from here on, yeah, then next year you could have a significant slowdown in global oil demand growth on the back of China.